Welcome in, belly up, have a seat and grab a drink as we talk some wingman fantasy football. Welcome on into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the league podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. This is episode 115, Week 9's 2-point conversation, and it is my great pleasure to welcome into the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing tonight, Bernie?
Oh, well, I've successfully resisted the urge to nap under the bar, so I'm good. How about you?
I've already taken 2 naps today. All right, guys, let's see. In this episode, what do we have here? We're going to have a big episode again, as we are going to go over some player news and notes. We will check in on our studs and duds for week number 9, and we'll also settle into a nice week 9's 2-point conversation where we go through all of the NFL action for the weekend. With that being said, I want to make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingmen assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, I'm going to take a moment to be very serious. Bernie, I've got to tell you something. I apologize. You were right. You took the Philadelphia Eagles in the Wingman Jam. I double-checked. It was clear as day. I don't know. I was trying to steal one from you. I'm glad you put the Wingman Jam under protest, and your protest has been heard. The appeal has been upheld, and we are 2-2 going into this week's of our Wingman Jam.
Stat correction.
There you go. All right, guys, let's get into some player news and notes. All right, we had Amari Cooper was inactive this week with a wrist injury against the Dolphins, so he has not been helpful since his trade, as of course our Fantastics left him on the bench to watch to see how he would do. I'm not sure if he did or not, actually, but when he put him in his lineup, he's been dud and or inactive. Brian Robinson Jr. has been dealing with a hamstring injury for the longest of time. He's been playing, not scoring a lot of points, but getting in the end zone to keep his fantasy days okay. But he finally had to sit one out this week against the Giants. And Ezekiel Elliott was told to stay home as he was inactive for the Cowboys against the Falcons. And that must have been what did it for the Cowboys today, not having their star running back, Ezekiel Elliott. And Jonathan Brooks is getting close. He wasn't active on Sunday, but he was activated off of the NFI list. Activated. So he will be with the team for the rest of the year, and all indications are he will be active for next week, week 10. All right, what do you have on these first 4 guys? Amari Cooper, Brian Robinson, Zeke, and Jonathan Brooks.
Well, they didn't need Cooper, so get the rest. That's good for him. I know he was on the bench for our manager. Robinson Jr., this is like the biggest hype train going this year so far, I think. Like the news is always like, when is he coming back? It's just as the word has escaped me. Just as exciting as Christian McCaffrey wait. Elliott, yeah, definitely. Didn't need him. They weren't going to lose that game with or without him anyway. And then Brooks, I don't know. I don't really have anything on Brooks.
Well, Chuba Hubbard had another fine day today. You were saying when Brooks is active, you're going to put him in. Have you changed your stance on that?
I don't have Brooks on my team.
No, I know. In general,
yeah, because it's been so long. So I don't know. I really don't. I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. It's just one of those things. Chuba Hubbard doesn't really play that great. Brooks, I don't think is going to be any better, but not with this offense.
All right. Some more players here. We had a pair of Bengals here. T. Higgins was inactive with a quad injury as he missed his 2nd consecutive game, and I believe this is his 4th missed game of the season. Zach Moss was also inactive this week, making way for a ton of work of Chase Brown for the Bengals, and this is a bit of foreshadowing for Mr. Brown. And Tony Pollard was listed as questionable all week, didn't practice, but he did get onto the field, and he was active this week. Oh, this is some tough news right here. Chris Olave took a monster shot today today as he left the game early. He sustained another concussion. It looked even worse than that. It's his second concussion in the past 4 weeks. He was carted off the field, taken to a local medical center. He did have movement in all of his extremities, and we are hoping for the best for Chris Olave and a speedy recovery. And Drake London also left the game early with a hip injury. He went into the locker room before halftime, and I think he was ruled out at halftime, if I'm not mistaken. And we're just going to have to check on his status going forward if he's going to miss any more time. Let's just stop right there. We had two Bengals who were out, making way for Chase Brown. Tony Pollard was in, Chris Olave, and Drake London with bad injuries today.
Yeah, Tony Pollard was a surprise. I was expecting that start of the week to not go anywhere. And then Chase Brown he's still going to be the guy to go to. So I don't have any worries for that offense. The only thing I worry about in that offense, though, is some of the play calling is a little suspect. But I mean, Joe Burrow put up 5 touchdowns today. So it's like one of those things where I think they'll be okay without it. Olave, that's a tough one. They're running out of offensive weapons, so Taysom Hill might be a live waiver wire early look coming up here soon.
All right, we had Drake May. I told you, not that I was saying that it might be coincidence, but once we get that first player to clear the concussion protocol within a week, it seems that we get more and more happening. Drake May was one of those guys. He was active this week after sustaining a concussion in last week's game. Tyron Tracy was also cleared with a concussion, and he played on Monday night, and he was cleared by Friday to get back on the field from his concussion from last week. And Josh Jacob, who was listed as questionable all week, went into warm-ups as questionable, but he was active for the Sunday game in a rainy day in Green Bay. And Puka Nacua, who sustained a knee injury late in the practice week, was able to be active for the team's game. However, he didn't finish the game due to getting ejected for throwing a punch late in the second quarter. All right, what do we have about these guys here? We had a couple quick returns from concussions. Josh Jacobs, Puka Nacua are both questionable, but they got on the field this week.
Yeah, Puka, that was unfortunate for them. Luckily, they won that game in overtime, so that was a little uncalled for. I think that was just a little uncalled for. So the concussion things, though, Tracy, he looked okay, but the offense, again, like Daniel Jones had the rushing touchdowns. So it was one of those things where the offense didn't seem like it was circling the wagons around that run game in particular. Jacobs looked good as well. So I think these concussion things are, like you said, once that seal has been broken, we'll see a little bit quicker turnaround. But I think it's on a team by team. I think some teams might take it a little bit more seriously than the others.
Yeah. All right, we have a couple more players here. Dak Prescott was ruled out early in the fourth quarter against the Falcons with a hamstring injury. The chatter all week is that Dak Prescott is not running anymore. He finally went to run a little bit, and he pulled up lame. And Cooper Rush took over the play-calling duties. We're not sure how long Prescott may be out, but Cooper Rush filled in pretty well last year in spot starts in the middle of the season. I think it was last year where he played. It might have been 2 years ago. But he's been a quality backup quarterback for them for the last couple seasons. A.J. Brown, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear this, Bernie, was knocked out of Sunday's game against the Jaguars with a knee injury. I did not personally see it. I don't know how bad it was, if it was just kind of a precaution thing, but he left the game with a knee injury. And CeeDee Lamb left the game briefly, did return, but he is now dealing with an AC joint injury in his right shoulder and is going to need to undergo further testing to see the severity of this particular injury. What do you have on these guys? Dak, A.J. Brown, and CeeDee Lamb.
Well, as far as A.J. Brown goes, it was early in the game. He had like 2 catches, I believe. I think it was probably worse in the moment than it's going to be long term. As far as Dak and Lamb go, I didn't really see exactly what happened. I just saw after the fact that they were out of the game for Lamb for that moment and then Dak for the game. It might be their egos that hurt a little bit more than anything. They were kind of laughing it up on the sideline a little bit as they were down.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't laughing, but they were, it was good. Like they were just having a conversation and they were smiling. So who knows what they were talking about? Maybe what to get for dinner in Atlanta or something.
I bet I can guess what they were talking about. Hey, we're good, man. We got paid in the off season. We're good for a
Yeah,
while.
there you go. Yeah, yeah. Did your check clear yet? Yeah, okay, you're good then, right? So, yeah. So AJ Brown is the big miss here. Um, if Dak and Lamb don't play though, they don't have a running game anyway. So, that's just I don't know what's going on in Dallas.
All right, guys. It is now time to check in on our studs and duds.
Wingman Fantasy Football Studs and Duds.
All right. Why don't you start us off with some of the good news today, Mr. Bernie?
All right. The top four on this list look like quarterbacks, and a couple of them with overtime games. Nice to have those extra minutes to get those extra stats. Jalen Hurts tops the list at 29.8 points, 230 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 66 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Geno Smith, 28.12 points. Man, Geno, team looked bad, but he played good stats here. 363 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 16 rushing yards. We don't get negative points, but he had a couple of really big turnovers that cost them that game probably. Mr. Daniel Jones making the list. Oh, I love it. Danny Dimes here, 26.36 points, 174 passing yards. That's reasonable. 2 passing touchdowns, but 54 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. And then rounding up the top four here, Josh Allen, 24.1 points, 235 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and he had a 7 rushing yards with 1 2-point conversion. That was all against the Dolphins too. So yay.
Yeah. Our next players on the stud list here was J.K. Dobbins, had 23.5 points as he totaled 105 yards, had 2 receptions, and got 2 rushing touchdowns today for the Chargers. Chuba Hubbard keeps on chugging along, keeps on chubbing along as he had 20.20 points. He has perfect eyesight with 72 rushing yards, but he had 2 receptions and 2 rushing touchdowns, including the go-ahead score later in the fourth quarter. Quentin Johnston had 20 points even with 118 receiving yards, 5 receptions, and a receiving TD. And Ramondre Stevenson, this guy gets points without getting the yards as he had 19.9 points with 54 total yards with 5 receptions, but the 2 touchdowns is what made his day. And that's it for this group. What else? Who do you have next here?
Now we have one that's starting to pop up on this list more often than none. Cortland Sutton. He's got Mr. Bo Nix throwing it to him. 19.78 for Sutton, 122 receiving yards, 7 receptions, and 1 passing touchdown. Sorry, that was in a different color. Rico Dowdle comes up next. 19.2 points, 107 total yards, 5 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdown. Then Mr. Devontae Adams, I think is this 2 weeks in a row for Devontae? Or maybe 1 week in a row?
Nope. 1 week.
One week in a row. 18.6 points, 91 receiving yards, 7 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdown. And Mr. Pass the Bijan Robinson, 18 points. This was a good game for him. 145 total yards and 7 receptions.
All right, we have a couple more players on the stud list here. The LA Rams defense taking advantage of Geno Smith's best Jameis Winston impression at 18 points as they got 6 sacks, 3 interceptions, a blocked kick, and one of those INTs went for a 104-yard interception return for a touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
And Darnell Mooney had 17.3 points with 88 receiving yards, 5 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdown. All right, now not everything can be good, but we have a lot of bad this week. The stud list started off so strong, so fast with the 1 o'clock games. And then as the later games started coming in, the dud list kept growing. Why don't you start us off with our duds for week 9?
Oh, wow. It looks like the duds start just the same as the studs for quarterbacks at the top of this list. Mr. Jordan Love, only 12.92 points. It was a wet, rainy, cold, somewhat cold day. Lots of bad snaps for Jordan Love in this game. Dak Prescott, 12.32 points. Didn't finish the game, though, so that's kind of expected. Bryce Young is okay. 11.74, but the team did good, so sorry for the stat line, but good job on that the game today, Bryce. And the Dominator, Jared Goff, only 9.8 points because the rest of the team takes care of business. They were playing outside, so he's not going to have Dominator points.
All right, once again, we have Caleb Williams. Oh no, what happened here? Was that an interception for the Minnesota Vikings? Not good, not good. Sorry about that. All right, we had Caleb Williams once again get only 9.18 points, and the player on the other side of the field, Kyler Murray, had only 6.76 points as James Conner dominated, or the running game altogether dominated this game. Fat Keenan Allen, after that bye week, he just gave in, had 5.6 points, and Tucker Kraft, although being targeted in the end zone so many times today, had only 5.6 points.
And another tight end on this list. So it looks like the tight ends just took a nap after National Tight Ends Day. David Njoku, 5.4 points. Ooh, DJ Moore, the second Chicago receiver on the list, 5.3 points. Brian Thomas Jr., 5.2 points. Dalton Kincaid, I see a tight end. He sure is, 5.2 points.
All right, back to that rainy game with the Green Bay Packers. Romeo Dudds had only 4.8 points today. A.J. Brown had 4.6 points, as we mentioned before. He left the game early. Keon Coleman had only 4.6 points, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is hot or cold. Despite the Arizona Cardinals winning today, he was cold, only at 4.4 points.
And Mr. Nick Chubb, looks like that Chubb is a little cold outside there, buddy. 4.4 points. Sam Laporta, 3.8 points. Alexander Madison, 3.6 points. And Mark Andrews, 3.6 points. Please don't play your tight ends anymore. Thank you.
Yep, only on National Tight Ends Day. All right, Devin Singletary. I wasn't sure I was going to put him on this list, but he is rostered. He only had 3.3 points. Another Giant teammate, Wan'Dale Robinson, can only get 2.3 points. Tank Bigsby only had 2.2. I think he was actually started today in our league. And Chris Olave, we mentioned before, it was carted off the field in the first half, had only 1.8 points.
And then Puka Nacua, who also did not finish the game, only 1.6 points. And to round it out, to end it off, Mr. Kyle Pitts, who played the whole game and has a tight end next to his name, 1.6 points for Mr. Kyle Pitts.
So our stud list was way shorter than our dud list because actually we had the most mecha studs we've ever had in the season so far. So let's check in on our mecha studs.
Mega Studs.
All right. Like you said, overtime was good for Geno Smith and his number one receiver with DK Metcalf out. Jackson Smith and Jigba was a monster, especially in the fourth quarter and overtime, getting 33.5 points. He was the highest scoring player in our league so far at 180 receiving yards, 7 receptions, 2 touchdowns, including the game-tying touchdown in the last minute of the game on a fourth down play, and he was on one of our managers' bench. Saquon Barkley, what can I say about this guy? 33.4 points, had 199 total yards, 3 receptions, and 2 TDs, including a reverse frog leap over half of the Jacksonville Jaguar team. It was pretty impressive to see. He looked like a Barnum and Bailey clown when they do the little jump through the hoops. Joe Burrow, Mr. Joe Cool, had 31.14 points with 251 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and 11 rushing yards. And this mecha stud was on our manager's bench this week as well. Devon, the man, Achane, 28.1 points with 121 total yards, 8 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. Zay Flowers, a great day for Mr. Zay Flowers, had 27.2 points with 127 receiving yards, 5 receptions rather, and 2 touchdowns. And what can you say? But Derrick Henry is a mainstay up here. So we have they took our jobs backfield of Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, the 11-12, the 12 and 13 picks on the 1-2 round turn. They have been great all year long. Derrick Henry had 133 total yards, 1 catch, and scored 2 more touchdowns. On Thursday night, Garrett Wilson got the week started with 25.5 points on 90 receiving yards with 9 catches and 2 touchdowns, including a couple of great grabs by the boundary. And Mike Gesicki, whenever one of those receivers is out for the Bengals, Gesicki steps up. He is a tight end who made it 24.5 points with 100 yards on 5 catches and 2 touchdowns. And Bernie's number one running back, even though he wasn't his number one drafted, Alvin Kamara at 24.5 points. He did all that without scoring a touchdown. He had a similar game to Bijan Robinson. Big numbers, but no score, but he was even better. 215 total yards with 6 catches for Alvin Kamara. Demarcus Robinson can't do it when he's the only receiver, but if he has one of those big-time receiver teammates and Cooper Kupp and or Puka Nacua, that's when he steps up. Demarcus Robinson, 24.4 points on 94 receiving yards with 6 catches and 2 TDs, including the game winner in overtime, a one-handed over-the-shoulder catch from about 45 yards out. And our last player to make the Mecca stud list is Chase Brown, 24.2 points with 157 total yards, including 5 catches and a touchdown, and he was on a manager's bench. What do you think about some of those mega studs? My goodness, were there some big-time scores today?
Oh, yeah. They took our jobs. Literally owns this segment here. He is just running through everybody with these running backs. It's good to see Gesicki on there, former Dolphin. He was only going to be on there once, though. I don't think he'll ever be on there again. And Demarcus Robinson, man, I saw that catch. That was a pretty catch. Oh, but Saquon had the highlight move of the day. That looked like a basketball play, like the juke, the spin. He could have been dribbling down that field. It looked so good. And then the jump, oh my gosh, it looked choreographed. It looked like it was straight out of like a Madden game. It was so good.
I was nervous when he jumped because his back was to the oncoming defense. I was afraid he was going to get cracked in the middle of the back.
Well, he missed the next 2 or 3 plays. He was going down squatting. It looked like his inner thigh, like his abductors or something was a little off or something. And he was kind of stretching his back. And I was like, man, you had that awesome look. And hopefully you don't get knocked out of the game because you had that play. So it was good. It was great to see.
All right, guys, now it is time to settle into our Week 9's 2-point conversation.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here,
He's going for 2.
The Raiders will go for 2 and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Wingman Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right, why don't you start us off? Let's go over some of the games. What's the first game we're going to tackle this week?
Well, let's get this one out of the way. Dolphins at the Bills, 27-30. Buffalo takes this one. It was a close game. It was a sloppy game, but ultimately Buffalo takes the win here.
The Dolphins were looking in pretty good shape, and then that Mostert fumble to start off, I don't know if it was the first or second drive in the third quarter. That's when it seemed to turn around. But they still came back to the Dolphins, and for the second straight week, they lost on a buzzer field goal by less than 2 points or less. Awful. Tyler Bass, the kicker for the Bills, was missing kicks all season long, including an extra point where he missed one. He banked one in off the inside of the upright. He was all over the place on his kicks, but he made a 61-yard kick at the buzzer to have the Bills take this one down, extending their lead in the division. And the Dolphins really have to go 7-8 the rest of the way, or 7 out of 8.
Yeah, exactly. And Tua played a good game. Everybody played. Achane had a good game. There were just a couple of boneheaded mistakes in key spots for the Dolphins that you're just like, what is going on here? But it's one of those things. If you're a Dolphin fan, do you want them to win? Do you want them to lose? What you want the high draft pick? What's going on? So it's sad to see. So,
It is.
Yeah. All right. So the next game we have here is Denver at Baltimore. And this one was a blowout. I was not expecting this blowout at all. Denver 10, Baltimore 41.
So not to not because not to toot my own horn, but that's exactly how I thought this game was going to go. And I mentioned Baltimore gets up quite a bit and the other team gets a lot of comeback mode points. And that was the case today. And actually the Broncos could have had a ton more points fantasy wise since they were down by so much. They kept going for 4th down in the red zone and they kept not scoring. They got stopped at the 1-yard line 2 different times at least. And even with that, Cortland Sutton was getting targeted. It was a 3 quarters of garbage time essentially for the Denver Broncos. They had enough fantasy points. I think Knicks had 19 and a half. Sutton made our list today, but they could add a lot more as Javonte Williams got stopped at the 1 yard line and Cortland Sutton got stopped at the 1 yard line late in the game. And they were just trying to score just for morale, and they couldn't even do that. They were getting empty yards in the third and fourth quarter, but Denver dominated this one. Oh, and Derrick Henry extended his streak to 10 games now in a row, scoring a touchdown going back to week 18 of last year, all 9 this year, and the last game last year. He is a stud, a monster.
He definitely is, and it's good to see that Lamar didn't poach all of the rushing touchdowns, and Henry did get some couple rushing touchdowns there. And then on the other side, the Broncos, like if Cortland Sutton is the one having the passing touchdown and not Bo Nix, you're not going to win games. So.
But Bo Nix caught it, so he got the better deal on that. Really,
yeah, this is true. But but you still need to be able to get that ball in the end zone if you're Bo Nix on your own. So, okay, moving on to the next game, we've got L.A. Chargers at Cleveland, and this one was 27-10. L.A. Chargers take the victory. So the Harborough, say it for me.
You're messing me up now. You just like messing with my head the way I heard you say. Harbaugh
brothers take their 2 wins for the week 9 games here.
You okay? You need a minute?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So
27-10 LA Chargers.
So I was surprised. I didn't really watch this game too much as the Chargers got out to a 2-score lead pretty early in the game, and it just never relented there. He didn't get as big of a day as you were hoping, but still did good as they were passing the ball quite a bit. J.K. Dobbins in the later part of the game kind of capped the lid for Justin Herbert, but he started off hot. What else was going to say about this one? Oh, so the Browns only scored 1 touchdown, but Cedric Tillman was the guy. He had a decent. There was no stats for the Browns today, but Tillman still ended up with a decent day today.
Yeah, he shared 11 targets with Jerry Jeudy. He had the almost identical stat line, except he had the touchdown. He was 671, 6 receptions, 75 yards, and 1 touchdown. And Jeudy was 7 receptions for 73 yards. So it was just a touchdown.
So what is the record for the Chargers? Are they 5-3 or are they 6-2?
They are 5-3 right now, and the Browns are 2-7.
Wow.
So the Chargers are
quietly just winning.
They're the first round team that you don't want to play.
All right, what else we got?
All right, just another quick note here on this game. Jameis looked good and bad. He threw 3 interceptions, and I saw them. And it was either he just threw a bad pass and it wasn't going where he wanted it to go, or the receivers and him aren't on the same page. So
okay.
Yeah, so don't count him out of the whole thing yet. All right, next we have New Orleans at Carolina at an upset. Carolina takes this one 23-22.
You call this might be a trap game for New Orleans. Excuse me. But so this morning, I don't put too many comments on the wingmanfantasyfootball.com page, but I'm starting to do that as kind of like my quasi Twitter thing. I'll put up little nuggets. So if you can go back, it's timestamped. I didn't make it up. So when Kendra Miller got put on the IR yesterday, Jamal Williams was inactive this morning. I put on there, Kamara is going to eat. I was nervous putting that out there because it just seemed like a jinx move. But there were no other running backs on the team. And he got all the work, man. He just was awesome all day long. Derek Carr looked awful. He just was checking down to all day long to Kamara. And you're right. That was a trap game in terms of the outcome of the game. Kamara was the only good player on the team, and he was a stud.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Again, I'm just going to go back to coaching. They got the talent on the team. Obviously, Olave missing was bad, but they need to really utilize Taysom Hill more. And on the other side, Bryce Young, he looked okay. One touchdown, 1 interception, not bad at all. So good on them. All right, let's see what we got up next here. Lost Vegas at Cincinnati, and this one was a blowout as well. 24 for Vegas, 41 for Cincinnati.
I don't know if Cincinnati was they copied what Philly did to them last week. They were up by 20 points, and they just kept trying to score in the second half. So they actually did take in they were at like first and goal with like 2 minutes to go and they kind of just kneeled it out, Philly would have tried to score there. But before that 2 minutes, they scored like 2 or 3 times in the later second half after already being up by 17 points or so. They just dominated this game, got off to an early start, and they didn't need Jamar Chase. So he was not the big winner today. It was Burrow to Gesicki with long touchdowns for Gesicki. He's had like 3 or 4 really good games this year, and most of them come when one of those receivers is out. So he is a big-time step-up player. He's like your handcuff type of receiver, like kind of how Goddard was early in the year with the injuries to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Gesicki is showing that he's a reliable guy you can play when there is a missing receiver in that wide receiver core.
Yeah, and I didn't see much of this game, but I'm looking at the box score here, and it looks like Desmond Ridder had 11 of 16, 74 yards, and a touchdown. So it looks like they're splitting time, Gardner and Ridder. So
I didn't see it, so I don't think there's an injury. I haven't seen anything pop up. I'm assuming Minshew got benched again. So that's just you can't. We had him on our list as a starter, thinking that Ridder couldn't take the job, but if they're that willing to just put in anybody, you got to stay away from the Raiders offense going forward.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of contract this head coach has got, but I don't know, man. He's losing top offensive players. It's not a good sign. And when you can't get your team all on the same page here. All right, next game we have here is Washington at the Giants, and this one was 27-22. Washington takes the victory.
So I didn't watch a lot of this one because I gave up on it because Washington was up by quite a lot, like in the middle of the game here, and I just kind of thought it was over. And then I looked up, and the Giants had the ball down less than a score, down as one score. I don't know how they came back. So you might have watched this game a little more. Maybe you can tell me how this one went down a little bit.
So I did watch this. I have Washington defense that was in my lineup, and I had Tyrone Tracy on my bench just to watch. And this one, it was a lot. It looked like it was a lopsided game at the beginning. Washington was just doing their thing, stopping them. Giants didn't score a touchdown until the second quarter, and it was already 14-7 before they were getting ready to go here. But then Daniel Jones, he just got knocked down and he got back up again. And you know how that song goes. And he put a licking on somebody on a defensive end on the goal line to score his first rushing touchdown. He just looked like he didn't want to get benched. He didn't want to get booed. Obviously, they lost the game, but he really did shoulder a lot of this game. Tyrone Tracy looked good. Neighbors looked decent. Nobody looked stellar in this game. Darius Slayton probably could have had a couple more catches. He had a couple of drops that I saw that might have helped them get closer. But the second half of this game, the Giants did come alive, and they got a couple of bad breaks on some really bad calls as well. So they could have won this game.
Well, I did notice just box score watching there with Brian Robinson out. Austin Eckler had a decent day today. I don't know if it was on the ground or a combination of catches and rushes, but he ended up with 14.5 points, I believe, in terms of fantasy points. So he must have done decent filling in for Brian Robinson today.
Yeah, he split the yards. He had 42 on the ground and 41 in the air. So he did do a good job. Noah Brown also did a pretty good job. He had the game-winning catch last week. So they played good. The Giants just started to come alive, and then that Commanders defense just didn't know what to do.
All right, what's our next game?
All right, so next up we've got hometown favorite here, Dallas at Atlanta, 21-27. Atlanta takes the victory, and it wasn't as close as that score says.
I was box score watching this one because I was YouTubing the Sunday ticket, but this was our local game, and I didn't feel like messing around with stuff, so I just had that on the box score on the refresh. And once again, Bijan Robinson got most of the work. He did quite well running chunk plays after chunk plays, but the one drive that bothered me, he got all the yards on the drive. I think it was 3 catches and 3 rushes, got down to the 6-yard line, or 10 or 11, and then they gave 2 straight rushes to Algier, and Algier got the touchdown. I hate Algier so much.
Yeah, Algier, he did get a couple of goal line looks that they were like, give it to him, and I'm like, okay, going to switch these back. He's like, stay in, and he got it, and then he got the touchdown. But Ray McLeod did help out a lot once once Drake London went out. So Ray McLeod the third, I believe he might actually be on King George's team. I'll have to verify that. But
he got dropped today or yesterday.
Okay, so if Drake London is an extended injury, just keep an eye on that. McLeod would be the next man up here. And then the Dallas just looked bad. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Cooper Rush in a pinch, you can pull him off the waivers.
So usually and he started off okay, like because they were down early by a couple scores.
Yeah.
But they kept kicking the field goals early. I love McCarthy for that. But in the second half, he kind of they were down by I think 14 points.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to get 2 touchdowns, but there was like 10 minutes left. It wasn't 6 minutes. It was 10 minutes or more, or give or take. And they got down to the 30-yard line. And of course, you want the game to be perfect. We're going to score 2 touchdowns. We're going to hold them, but you can't guarantee you're going to hold the other team for that long. If it's 8 minutes left, like we're scoring twice, we got to hold them or we're losing. I thought they should have kicked the field goal there.
Yeah.
They didn't. They went for a 4th down. They didn't get anything. And then later they held the team. They went 3 and out the next thing right away. They got the ball back within a minute. It's like if you would have had those 3 points, you still could score twice, and now you can go for the win, and you can still give up a field goal and not be out of it.
Yeah.
And then they scored a touchdown late in the, or I don't know exactly how much time was left. They had to go for an onside kick, but 2 minutes or so, between three and 1.5 minutes, they scored that touchdown to get it to 20 or 19, I guess. And they didn't go for the extra point. They went for a 2-point conversion to get it to a 6-point game. Like, what's the point in that? You miss it, then you have to try for 2-point conversions. Why don't you just kick it, keep yourself alive, and then make that decision on the last one? If you score again, you can go for the win or the tie then. Like, they made it where they were boxing themselves in a corner. The combination, I hate when guys, it's like go for 2 all the time or kick the extra point all the time. But when you go back and forth and you fail on one, you're getting 6 points every time. You know what I'm saying? Or you're always getting 13 points instead of getting 14 points.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Something might need to happen in Dallas. Jerry Jones isn't going to let that fly, this losing thing fly for too much longer here. So he's getting worried. I know it.
Well, I know they're behind in the standings behind the standings to Washington, but Washington doesn't have that pedigree. You could see them. They're playing well. I don't see it on the field, but I'm saying you could see a young team like that who's like kind of overperforming, all of a sudden kind of hit a wall, and they lose 2 games in a row and they lose confidence. So they're still only whatever it is, 2.5 games back, maybe 3 games back, but they still have to play Washington twice, I think. So I mean, it's still in front of them. They can't give up on the season. I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I'm just saying in terms of, I hate when teams, throw in the towel when the mathematically they still have a lot of options here.
Yeah, mathematically you got a lot of options, but you're going to be playing your former defensive coordinator twice, and he's got his team rolling. He knows the weaknesses on that offense. That's the dangerous thing about it.
Yep. All right. What's our next game?
All right. Next up, we have New England at Tennessee. This is actually an exciting game, I would say. Overtime game. New England 17, Tennessee 20.
What was the final score? Who won that game?
Tennessee 20.
Right. Tennessee did. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
We had we're going to the end here, but I'm going to talk about some of the stats too. But we had Drake May had a bunch of 4th down conversions on that last drive. They scored on the last play where his feet were going the opposite direction of his shoulders the whole time. It was weird. Like usually guys kind of go backwards and spin out like that Russell Wilson spin or the Kyler Murray spin, and he spin the inside instead of the outside. And then when he turned, he's like, how do I throw them on? But he got it there. He just kind of flipped it up because he saw there was no one on the to the outside edge of Ramondre Stevenson. He's like, Stevenson, I'm just going to throw it out there. And he got it. Stevenson got his second touchdown at the buzzer to force it into overtime. I wasn't sure if they were going to go for the extra point, the 2-point conversion there. And then Calvin Ridley had a decent day. He didn't get as many catches as I liked, but he had a strong day, 75 yards. And the thing I did like, he caught 5 catches on like 8 or 9 targets. I hate when he catches like 5 catches on 15 targets. You know what I mean? When it's so inefficient. Of course, I would love like last week, I think it was 10 catches on 15 targets. But I like that ratio, that 60% success rate, especially for a team that's not a superstar team like that. So he was their leading receiver, but it was Tony Pollard. He didn't look too banged up to me during the game. They gave the ball a lot. He had a lot of carries in a row, and I was nervous he was going to get crunched 1 or 2 many times and kind of come off the field. But he was the guy there with Tajay Spears out. They gave Julius Chestnut a little bit of work, but Pollard was the man controlling the offense today. And even after the Patriots had that crazy buzzer touchdown to tie it, the Titans regrouped, went right down the field very slowly and methodically. They would have liked to get that touchdown to have the game end, but they took off 8 minutes on that drive and gave the ball with only 2 minutes left to the Patriots to try and get back down for a field goal to tie it or a touchdown to win it.
Yeah, glad to see the Titans win, but Drake May did play well, and he was on the bench, and that is the closest matchup we've got going right now. So hopefully you don't lose by whatever that difference was that you started Caleb Williams and you had Drake May on your bench.
Drake May I don't know, he's going to get knocked out. I didn't see how he got his concussion last week. I didn't watch that game, but I did watch some of this one here. He does not slide, and he just dives into big boys who are like coming from weird angles. He's getting crunched for no reason.
For sure. All right. So the next game we've got up here is Chicago at Arizona, and Arizona dominates this game 29-9. Arizona looked amazing, or Chicago looked really bad, one or the other.
In this game, Odunze got off to the hot start with a few catches and a medium to long ones, and then they kind of just stalled out. Caleb Williams, let me say this. Like I said, I've been watching the Cardinals way more than I ever would. I would say they're almost like a poor man's Chargers, and the Chargers are a poor man's something else. Their defense is better than you think, especially up front. They tackle so well. DeAndre Swift could not get going today. He had a couple screen passes when they were kind of in comeback mode, but they just tackle so good, and they rush really well. They don't always get sacks, but you saw they did a Tua last week. They just close the gaps all the time. Their secondary is not as good as their front seven, but if your front seven is good enough, you can make up for some of your secondary, weaknesses, I guess. And they also run the ball. They give Connor the ball a lot. And it wasn't just Connor today. They sprinkled in Benson. It was like Connor was softening up the defense, getting him, he was doing the banging. And then they put the backups in. The backups had the long plays today that capped Connor's fantasy day. But Connor was the reason they won this game. He beat up the Bears, and then the other guys were fresh and just took advantage of and Murray didn't have to do anything. He just was handing the ball off all day.
Yeah, for sure. Chicago, this looked like the early season Chicago Bears with 3 field goals only. It looked like Caleb was just overwhelmed. So it didn't look good. Didn't look good at all. And DeMarcado, he might be one of those early waiver handcuff pickups for this week coming up.
All right. What else we got here?
All right. Next up, we have.
Oh, wait, sorry. I'm sorry. My mistake. I had a note here I forgot to mention.
Yep.
Arizona did their best Miami Marlins impression as they had a rainstorm in the dome today. I don't know if you noticed that. It was raining. They had the dome open. Thing. It was a nice day. And not only did it rain, but it was hailing on the field inside as they're closing it, and its hail's coming in the crack before it could finally seal up.
Yeah, I'm surprised they had time to close it, honestly. You got to start that thing early to start closing it. All right. So next up we have Jacksonville at Philadelphia. And this one was a lot closer than expected. Philadelphia takes the win in overtime, though, 28-23.
That went to overtime?
No, I'm sorry. That one did not go in overtime.
Right.
Yeah, 28-23.
That's fine. Yeah, the score got off to Eagles once again got out to like a 17-0 lead, 20-3, 20-7, give or take. As Saquon Barkley scored right away, he had a long run right as the game started. I was looking at the stats, getting things together, and Saquon Barkley popped up into the stud list before the first quarter ended. He was doing awesome, and then it seemed like that one was over, similar to what the other game we were talking about earlier. And then Jacksonville in comeback mode. I didn't see who really got all the plays there. It seemed like it was just Trevor Lawrence was scrambling around as they were dropping back in prevent. Maybe he got I think 2 rushing touchdowns today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, he did have. Rushing. Yes, Trevor Lawrence had 2 rushing touchdowns. It was a big Trevor Lawrence day, but he did spread his passes pretty evenly amongst his core.
And I didn't notice Etienne's numbers, but Tank Bigsby was a dud today. Was Etienne even active? I think he was. But,
he was. As far as rushing goes, though, he was only 3 carries for 24 yards. So he was active, but he really wasn't doing anything good. He only had 2 receptions, and that was only for 6 yards.
Yeah, so their running game was definitely stifled, and that Philly defense is starting to get pretty good.
They are getting pretty good. A lot of garbage time going on in that Jacksonville side, though. So, like I said, it wasn't as close as it looked, but they gave him a scare, and that's all that really matters.
Was that a replay, or did he just miss another kick? You're a kicker. Oh no, they're just showing. Never mind. They were just showing all his missed kicks. I'm like, are they getting? Okay, never mind. Sorry about that.
Well,
all right. And then Devontae Smith had a huge catch over the shoulder today for a nice touchdown.
Yeah, Devontae had a good touchdown. He also had a really nice little sideline toe drag swag there. He's got some amazing catches going on in this game, honestly. So Devontae looked good. AJ Brown is the sad puppy out of this game.
All right, what else we got?
All right, next up we have the best team in the NFL, Detroit Lions at Green Bay. Detroit wins this one 24-14.
They got out to they scored. It wasn't a huge lead. I think it was like 10-3. Kind of, they're both kind of stalling out. They were moving the ball, but then not scoring. It seemed like for a little while. Yeah. Josh Jacobs was dominating the first half, pretty much the whole first half. But the first drives or two, he had 12-yard, 11-yard, 37-yard. I was like, okay, here we go. And then I don't know if it was the rain, this the way the score was as the Lions were pulling away, and Jacobs didn't get anything in the second half except stuffed on a 4th and 1, which hurt. And they gave the goal line touchdown late in the game when it was desperation if the math would even worked out. They scored late, but they gave it to Emmanuel Wilson. I don't have any qualms about having Jacobs not in at that time of the game, but if you're going to run it, I wish they would have given it to the big dog. Yeah. But other than that, their defense, man, their defense is dominating. They didn't get a lot of stats today. They did get that interception for a touchdown, which was nice. But other than that, they just impose their will. They remind me of, not in their playing style, but how when San Francisco was last year, could dominate the flow of the game where you're just not going to get the ball. They're going to run it, and they're going to control the defense. And their passing game is good enough that you can't just load the box, or they're going to hit their Mr. Amon-Ra St. Brown and some of their other speedsters over the top. They're just so balanced. They can beat you in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, balance is the way to go, and controlling what you need to do to win is really their forte. I mean, total team 124 rushing yards and total team 145 receiving yards. So they did it both ways, but they didn't overwhelm either way. But the defense definitely controlled that, and it was 17-3 at the half for the Lions. So, and
I think the Lions 17, that was an interception return.
Yeah.
At the end of the half.
Yeah.
Like it was like 2 minutes to go, so it was 10-3, and they were getting ready to score.
And the rain and Jordan Love coming off an injury that might not be fully healed. A lot of the stuff's going on in this game. But the Lions did it, man. One of the 3 games not in the dome, and they got the win out of it.
Yeah. So this one I was also box score watching. So it was, again, the local game. So I had I had the Sunday ticket ones on the computer, and I didn't go to the local channels there. So I didn't see Jordan Love. Did he look? Was he limping around? How was he moving out there?
Well, he wasn't limping, but he would go back for his pass. He would throw his pass, and then that was it. There wasn't any sort of unnecessary movements or jumps or anything like that. He looked a little stiff, but he was able to make the throws, able to move, but that was it. Once the ball was out of his hand, it was like, I'm not doing anything else to, agitate it, to slip, to do anything weird with the game conditions and stuff.
I don't know why they played him then today. If he was whatever. They have a bye next week, so he can heal up, I guess.
I think it was one of those things where the Lions, for the past 3 visits, have won in Green Bay, and prior to that, they've never win in Green Bay or something like that. So, one of those things. So, go Lions! All right, next up, final overtime game on our slate here: LA Rams at Seattle, and the Rams take this victory 26-20.
All right, I'm just going to get to the end, and then we'll go back to some of this other stuff, right? So I'm trying to get ahead this time on my studs and duds notes, right? I'm playing against Matthew Stafford. He's in the dud list, and as I go, he starts to connects on a couple passes, and the game goes to overtime. Like, oh crap! Seattle goes all the way down. I'm like, just score a touchdown, just end this game. They don't even go for the field goal. They go for it on 4th down. They get stopped. And then Stafford comes and throws the big touchdown bomb, and it goes from dud to a near stud. And I just was crying in my hands as Stafford once again pulled out the magic. I have to say, It seemed like to me in some of these games that were close with comebacks and ties, these refs were giving some of these pass interference and weird penalties that happened in the Dolphins game. They gave a couple penalties to the against the Dolphins defense when the Bills were trying to come back on that last drive. You're like, come on, man, it's a big hit, but he came across, led with his shoulder. It's not his fault. The guy's head was sticking forward there. He didn't lead with his head. He led with his shoulder, and their heads hit a little bit because these helmets are bigger than their shoulders. What are you going to do? But that game had similar things as pass interferences when there was questionable, in my opinion. But big comeback for the both teams came back. This game was so ugly for so long, and then all of a sudden there was fireworks in those last overtime in the last 5 minutes. It was weird because Seattle was trying to come back the whole time, and they kept throwing interceptions, and so LA was just trying to run the clock out for the last quarter and a half, and they kept going 3 and out. It was like neither team could do the thing. If they just would have both played it straight and not like Seattle's playing desperate longer than they had to. If they just would have played the running game and played it straight up, they probably would have won because the other team wasn't doing anything on offense either.
Yeah, and this was one of those games where you look at the Seahawks game plan, and I don't know what's going on, but they just weren't finding their rhythm. They weren't finding their flow. Geno looked like he was getting too many pressures that he's just not used to. And when Geno scrambles, I don't know, maybe it was just this game, but he looks bad when he scrambles. He doesn't look like he knows how to make the right decision on some of his scrambles. And then Stafford, he's got some amazing throws. That last one to Robinson was perfect. I mean,
it was perfect.
It's so amazing to see this guy throw the ball 44 times, and still at the last throw of the game, and it's perfect.
And Smith and Jigba, like we said, took advantage. He was the one who helped the comeback for Seattle as they were down the whole game, but they just kept, like I said, they kept throwing interceptions, but they finally got enough stops on defense where they were still in it, and he was getting big chunk plays on those last 2 or 3 drives. 30 yards down the sideline, scored a touchdown. I think it was a 4th down play at near the buzzer to get the tying touchdown for the Seahawks and to send it to overtime. And I was excited for let's go Seattle. I'm like, oh no, that means overtime for Stafford. Oh.
So and the fumbles didn't help either for Geno there, but there were fumbles on the other side, so kind of a wash.
All right. Is that the end of our games here?
That is the last game on the docket.
All right, guys. Let's check in on some of our early waiver wire thoughts here. I'll let you go here. I got a bunch here I could probably fill in.
Yeah. So the couple that we went over already. Oh my gosh, my brain just went blank for a minute. I'm sorry, Michael.
I can go ahead if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
So even though he's having a bad game tonight, Joe Flacco is still available in our league. So he's probably picked up in a lot of leagues out there, but he's on that tier of quarterbacks. Like, for instance, we had a Ben's team pick up Derek Carr as an emergency start instead of Joe Flacco. And honestly, they're both going to finish up about the same. I think actually Derek Carr might finish better than Flacco. He's not doing anything tonight. Mike Gesicki is out there. Again, if you know, he's good all year long, but especially if you know that one of those 2 receivers for the Bengals, T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, are out, Gesicki is a green light go. Daniel Jones is still out there, and I'm not a Jones fan, obviously. I think his rushing and comeback mode is what helped him today, but they're playing the Carolina Panthers next week. That is the biggest part of this combination here. So Daniel Jones might be my number 1 quarterback at an early glance based on his opponent more than anything else.
Yeah, and then 2 LA receivers, one from the Rams, one from the Chargers. Robinson and Johnson are still out there. Just keep an eye out. Receivers are pretty. There's enough receivers to go around for everybody. But the running back position is, if you need help in running back, DeMarcado, keep an eye on him just because that running game is good, and Connor is running hard, so he might just be a good handcuff. And then, Taysom Hill. That's the only other person, just because Olave is out.
All right. Yep. I have all those guys right there as well. I haven't really seen him. I saw him on the stationary bite just now, so I don't know how well he's playing. But T.J. Hawkinson, again, it might be one of those wait and see a little bit, but we know he can do it. And they're playing some of these. I have to put out here who they're playing, and it's not so much the players, but it's the matchups. Yeah. So we got Flacco against Buffalo, so they're gonna have to score to keep up. We got Gesicki against Baltimore. Again, have to score to keep up. Daniel Jones against Carolina. Quentin Johnson against Tennessee. Their offense is bad and their defense is good, so it's kind of, you don't know how that game's going to go. Taysom Hill against Atlanta is a tough matchup, but TJ Hawkinson's playing Jacksonville next week, and you always want to get as many offensive players against Jacksonville and Carolina whenever you can. Do you have any other offensive players? I've got a couple defenses here.
No, that's it for the quick looks.
All right, a couple defenses to look at for streaming defenses for next week. New York Giants, again, they're playing that Carolina team, and the Philadelphia Eagles are available. They won't be on Wednesday, I guarantee you that, and they're playing against Dallas, and it's hard to say that's a good matchup or not, but if Dak misses time, don't sack him again. Come on. Sorry. But if Dak is out, you have a backup quarterback against the Philadelphia Eagles, so those are two quarterbacks you can target.
Yeah, and just keep an eye. We'll go over in depth, obviously, on Tuesday a little bit, but just keep an eye on the upcoming games. Play a little bit ahead of the curve. Don't always pick up for this upcoming week. Might want to pick up for the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep. All right, guys. So I say the theme that I've noticed this week is tight ends, except for Gesicki, are only viable on National Tight Ends Day. Otherwise, steer clear of those big boys on the end of the line. Tough going for the Dolphins. That back-to-back buzzer kicks to lose is just heartbreaking.
Wait, don't you have a tight end playing tomorrow night to try to win your?
Don't sack him anymore. All right. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you all so very much. You can find all of our audio feeds on your favorite podcast platform, including, but not limited to, we have Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. Just search Wingman the League to find those audio feeds. If you're not sure if you want to listen or watch, go to wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. We give you both varieties of feeds there. And then, of course, we appreciate any of you guys who go to our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. Please go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment. Let Bernie know how good of a job he's doing on his 4th and longs. The puns, I'm so proud of you. I love the puns. It's great. So with that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
Always establish the run game first.
I agree. All right. Way to go, Cardinals. All right. See you guys. All right. Bye.